And welcome on in, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King, joined here by Jason Caldwell for our weekly edition of Thursday Night Live. This will probably be Thursday mid-afternoon live because we'll post it before the basketball game tonight at 7 o'clock Central, the second game of the season for Stephen Pearl's bunch against Merrimack. And a little bit of travel will be involved with us going to Vanderbilt on Friday, so we won't have the Thursday Night Live coverage of that basketball game. So I wanted to get this out of the way beforehand, but we just got back from talking to interim coach DJ Durkin after Thursday's practice. And Jason, I mean, Durkin has talked about it several times already this week of moving over to that head coach's chair while at the same time trying to keep things as familiar as possible. And I thought it was really poignant by him today to say, look, we can't survive one without the other, the offense and the defense and everybody needing to be together. I think he knows if he were to put everything on his plate and try to just be the head coach with 4 days or 5 days of preparation, it would not go very well. And so it feels very similar this week. There really isn't a lot different other than Hugh Freeze being out and Derek Nix being the play caller now for the offense. And that is the way DJ Durkin wanted it to be. He wanted these players to feel as familiar as possible going into this Saturday's game.
Yeah, people have asked, what changes you would expect to see. Didn't really expect to see a whole lot of changes this week because there's just not enough time. There's not enough time to turn around when you go, hey, take a deep breath Sunday. By the way, you're the head coach now. By the way, Derek Nix, you're now the play caller. All these things are vitally different. So you're not going to change a whole lot in terms of what you do from a practice standpoint. Maybe there's a little more competition. Maybe do a few things differently, but it felt like it was laid out the same way that when we were there the other day. We saw a little bit more interaction, offense, defense at the end of practice when we were out there today. I think that the question you have now moving forward, obviously DJ Durkin said, look, he will help out, interject some on offense at times. How does he handle the game day back at being a head coach again, because he hasn't done that for a while. Hasn't had to worry about, hey, do we go for it on fourth down? We're going to kick a field goal here. All those things that you have to do as a head coach, he hasn't had to worry about that stuff. Now you had all those things on your plate, and so I think that's one part of it. And then I'm really interested to see, Nathan, if this offense, it's going to look the same in terms of scheme. You're not going to change your scheme a whole lot. But does it look different in the way things are approached at times? Do we see tempo? Do we see, more no huddle? Do they get to the line of scrimmage? Do we see, hey, look, we're going to target Cam Coleman 15 times no matter what? I mean, I think that's where you can see differences. You're not going to all of a sudden, run the wishbone, Saturday. But I think you can do some things differently in maybe the way you approach a game versus the scheme.
Whoops, I'm muted. He was asked today, and I thought, he talked about it earlier in the week. It's not so much offensively of what you're doing, more so how you're doing it. He was asked that again today. Is there any more guys we'll see on offense? Any more focus that we'll see on offense? And the first thing he said it's how and who, but it's also who's getting the ball. He said, I think it's so much about that. And then he still quote from him. We say who, that play looks great on offense. But what really matters is how are we doing it and who is actually executing it. That to me, and when you really simplify things on the offensive side of the ball, what do all great play callers do? You put the ball in your hands of your playmakers. And I think you're exactly right. We saw a lot of Eric Singleton on Tuesday's practice. I think he had like 4 straight touches with the ball. So you might see a lot of those kinds of guys on Saturday.
Yeah, I think, I mentioned when we got done with DJ Durkin today, I said, I've been trying to explain it, and for years I've said, listen, I could have trained my entire life as an offensive tackle, and I could not have blocked Reggie White. Scheme doesn't necessarily matter sometimes if you don't have the right guys in the right place or you're not doing the right things. And you look at it, we've talked about it, and it's changed a little bit recently, but there was a stretch where I think it was Oklahoma, Texas A&M, where Cam Coleman was lined up on the left side of Auburn's offensive formation, all but like 2 plays in those games. And, I just kind of asked DJ Durkin, look, as a defensive guy, does that make your job easier? And he just kind of nodded his head a little bit. Yeah, absolutely it does. We talked about it. You got to be able to move those guys around. That's why I'd like to see a little more tempo. I don't know if we'll see a bunch. Maybe you do. But keep guys on the field, move them around. Use Cam Coleman in the slot. Use him. Like, we've seen him line up in the slot, but he wasn't the slot receiver. They stack him at times. I don't think he's been the slot receiver this entire season. He's always wide, or like I said, he might be stacked in there, but there's also a slot receiver in there. That's where you create mismatches, and they haven't done a good job of that at all this season of doing that. See if they can do some of those things on Saturday.
Yeah, and in terms of the offense, like we said, it will be Derek Nix, but DJ Durkin was asked about it. How much input will you have from the head coach's chair? And he said, his process changes a little bit, so he might wrap up his thoughts with the defense a little bit quicker because he wants to actually have an input on the offense. Whereas before, like he said today, he's like, I'm not worried about watching the offense. Like, that's not my job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think his input, I know from what he said today, his input will come from what he's observing from Vanderbilt's defense. Like, right. I'm seeing them do these things and from a defensive coach's perspective, but he's not going to this will be Derek Nix's show on Saturday. And,
this is about as a defensive guy, this is what I think they're trying to do. And here's the things that would give me a problem if I was trying to do that. I think as a defensive coach, that's where you can help out if you're DJ Durkin.
Speaking of people who have given Auburn a problem, DJ Durkin in this defense actually had a really good plan for Diego Pavia in last year's game. That was not the reason why Auburn lost. Auburn lost because they got whipped on the line of scrimmage and couldn't move the ball on offense. But talking to Durkin this week about Pavia, it's exactly what everybody else says. He's so good at creating when the play breaks down. And he also talked about the experience level of this offense. Like, that's kind of been a reason why they've taken another step forward this season. Lots of experience on the O-line. They went out and got a couple nice receivers in the portal, and then they've got two of the best tight ends in the SEC. Right. And so Pavia is the center of this thing. He's the engine that makes that Tim Back offense go. But there's a lot of other pieces around him. This will be a challenge for Auburn on Saturday, but it's not going to be something unfamiliar. They know the system. They know what Vandy wants to do, and now it's up to them to try to slow down that running game and stop it.
Yeah, it kind of feels a little bit like Texas A&M, maybe. Diego Pavia is a lot more experienced than Marcel Reed, but it's a similar type of quarterback where you're going to look, making plays outside the pocket, doing some of those things. But you've seen John Mateer. You've seen some guys in that role. Even Gunnar Stockton's a guy that's athletic and make play. This Auburn defense has been up to the task every time. This one, it does feel a little different, though. Because like the uncertainty on offense, because DJ Durkin has to have another role on this thing, it kind of feels like if there's a chance for this Auburn defense to maybe break a little bit, it would be this Saturday. Now, I don't think that means 45 points. But look, they've been consistently keeping people below 24. Maybe you're offensively, can this Auburn team score 30 if Vandy scores 27? It sure doesn't feel like that. We haven't seen that to this point. Can you just go try to maybe do like Arkansas a little bit? Can you just kind of keep the ball away from the other team for a while, which is what Vandy and Diego Pavia have done a great job of the last 2 years in winning games.
This could be a short game because both of these teams are going to be trying to run the ball. Of course, possession is what Vanderbilt likes to do. I'd say they're not built to come from behind, but they impressed me a lot at Texas.
Yes,
because of how quickly and that's a really good Texas defense. I just think that there's not a lot of weaknesses in this Vanderbilt team. Now, they've got 2 losses. I'm not saying they're tremendous, but I do think this is a really, really good team on both sides of the ball. For Auburn's offense, DJ Durkin confirmed it on Wednesday, went out and said, hey, we've named Ashton Daniels the starter. He said he went and had a lot of conversations with the offensive staff early in the week, and coming away from that, similar to all the other things he's done from this interim chair, I think it's more about what the offensive coaches have seen. I don't think DJ Durkin inserted himself and said, all right, guys, Ashton's my guy. Like, no.
In 2 days, I don't think he's like, I've got it. We're done.
Right. And so clearly, I think that tells us a couple things, maybe about the steadiness of Ashton Daniels from a preparation standpoint. But for me, I will be interested to see what the game plan looks like for him on Saturday because, regardless of the way you look at it, Jason, they have not scored they haven't scored a touchdown period very much with anybody. But I mean, with Ashton Daniels at quarterback, when they were in the red zone, they weren't really able to get anything going against Arkansas. I know he was thrown into the fire there, and then it was just, it was a disaster from top to bottom against Kentucky. So I agree with you. Probably a lot more leaning on the ground game, one would think, with Ashton Daniels on Saturday.
Yeah, I think you do if you have success. I think the question is, it sure felt like they were very vanilla against Kentucky. Obviously, they were again the second half against Arkansas. At some point, you're going to have to give Ashton Daniels the opportunity to make a defense respect you throwing the ball. We saw the shot down the field, and a lot of that comes from the offensive line. Can they play better than they did last week? I sure hope so, because that was about it. We've seen rough games. That was, to me, the roughest game I've seen. For me, it felt like it was worse than A&M and Oklahoma, just because of the factors now. Field position was a killer. You were backed up all night long. So that's somewhere the defense can help this team as well, get you maybe some positive field position on Saturday. But I would expect right now to see Preston Murphy at center, to give you an older, more experienced group out there. Too tall at right tackle. I would expect to see that. It's your challenge either way. Preston Murphy told us, look, he's worked at center, but he hasn't played center. So that would be hey, jump into the fire and go play center against a pretty good Vandy front. But he's an older guy, experienced. He's played a bunch of guard. It's pretty much, can you snap the ball? And he looks like he's done an okay job with that. But it's going to be I think a very difficult challenge just because of everything thrown into it.
Yeah, and you saw, I mean, Cale Ellis has done a nice job. Really, I mean, he's done a good job filling in for Connor Lew during those two games where he got injured, and then against Arkansas, I thought he was great. At Kentucky, it was an overwhelming day for everyone on that offensive line, and when you're a 17-year-old freshman, you probably get the worst of that. And so
I think they did a great job of trying to confuse him and trying to do the twists and stunts things that Oklahoma did. Kentucky did a lot of the same things, and they exposed a guy that's a really good football player, but still 17 years old and wasn't quite prepared for that moment just yet.
Yeah, and even if Mason Murphy is not as technically sound as a center, you have the advantage now with him that there was that week earlier in the season, like you were saying, when they were thinking about putting him at center, they ended up going with Cale Ellis. I guess that was against Arkansas after Connor Lew suffered his injury, but it's a little bit more experienced of a group. We'll get into the injury situation just briefly because there are a couple more notes. Particularly, Champ Anthony suffered a leg injury in that same leg that he broke last season. We saw him on crutches a couple times out at the facility this week. DJ Durkin said they're hopeful that they can get him back at some point, but obviously that's not a very promising outlook right now. Now Auburn's in a situation where, look, number one, you've only got one healthy team captain. So that's just kind of, I don't know if I've ever seen a situation like that before where there's only one team captain available on the field, and that's Keldrick Falk. But a question mark for them on Saturday at the safety position. Jacquez Robinson, you'll probably see more of. And then you and I were talking about it today. I wonder if this is a big Eric Winters game because of those tight ends that Vanderbilt has, because Winters is a giant. He's one of the biggest defensive backs that you will see in the SEC and anywhere else. And so Eli Stowers is like a mid-round, early round NFL tight end type guy. I wonder if he could help you out at safety matching up against somebody like that.
Yeah, I think physically, he can run, he can cover, he can do some of that stuff too. So yeah, I think that's a guy that maybe you don't say you're going to play as much, and maybe we see more of. Maybe depending on how the game goes as well. But yeah, I think Eric Winters is a guy that could really help you out. Like you said, this is a team with a couple of tight ends. The other one's 6'7", bigger body. Stowers is more of the hybrid, guy that can really run. Looks like a big wide receiver at times, and like he had one of the biggest plays of the game against Texas last weekend, where they're looking to get back in the game, and he has a one play 65, 70-yard touchdown catch that changes the game a little bit for them. So that's where Eric Winters could be valuable. I do think you're right. I think he's the best matchup here. I do think too that this could be an interesting DeMarcus Riddick game because of his ability to run and do some of those things. He could be really valuable, maybe in that role of doing some coverage things with some of these tight ends as well.
DeMarcus Riddick was really good against Vanderbilt last year because that was those couple months when he started to come up as that quarterback spy type. And some people have asked about DeMarcus Riddick this year, and it's just, him only being a third down guy, his production has not been off the charts. I think maybe some of that has been things that you don't see, like him cutting off lanes as a spy and stuff on third and covering things up on third down. Also, and not just because Champ Anthony is injured, but I would not be surprised to see a lot of snaps for Anquan Fagans. DJ Durkin said that today.
Yep.
And then at practice on Tuesday, Fagans was really, really good during the drive period. We saw he created an interception against Jackson Arnold. And we had heard earlier in the season from Hugh Freeze, a couple times when New Boy didn't play that much, it sounded like he didn't prepare that well. And so when you see him doing that in practice, that probably means we're going to see a little bit more of him.
Yeah, and he, like I said, he's a guy that has been one of the best playmakers that I've ever seen watching in high school football. He made plays at every level. Had an interception last week and unfortunately got tackled from behind and fumbled it right back to Kentucky. But he's a guy that I think we'll continue to see more of and has a chance to be a difference maker and a building block for this defense, obviously, as you move forward. But yeah, I think New Boy's a guy that gives you something a little different, especially from a coverage standpoint back there.
Should be an interesting one on Saturday for a lot of different reasons. Of course, the last time Auburn had an interim coach, they did the exact same thing where they went on the road in the SEC on short preparation. That one felt a little more cobbled together. You're replacing more coaches. Jason has the wonderful picture of Will Friend behind the bench, like drawing up plays
correct
on the fly.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have to do that this time.
No,
I think that's the fortunate part of this one. It's not as starting over as that one was, for sure.
And I think, and people ask, the O-line's been so bad, get Jake Thornton out of there, or stuff like Ken Austin. And it's like, there's only 3 games left, y'all. Like, it's not worth it to blow this thing up. I thought about this, and I wonder your opinion about this as well, Jason. I don't really have a lean either way. When Brian Harsin got fired, it felt like the guys who were really tight with him were the ones removed.
Yeah.
Not to say Hugh Freeze didn't have a great relationship with these coaches, because him and Derek Nix go way back. Him and Ken Austin go way back.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost you didn't think those guys were going to sabotage the program or anything like that, but it was like, it was almost too close to association.
So much connection.
Yeah.
Yes. There was, I think, so much connection there. And you look this one and go, look, there's connection here, but you've got guys who've been coaching all over the country and in Austin and Canada. I mean, like, these are guys that have been coaching before. And so, yes, you feel like, look, these guys are going to go work. They're going to do the things they're supposed to do. And you feel like, look, they've got the ability to do this thing on their own. And so, yeah, it definitely has a different feel. There's some guys that are connected to Hugh Freeze, but that's every coaching job there's ever been. If you do that and go, look, we're going to get rid of everybody that has a connection to the head coach. If we get rid of that guy early, you're not going to have many coaches left, because you got to get rid of the GAs and if you're doing that, you got to get rid of everybody, and that means there's going to be very few people left in the building to coach a football team.
Yeah, a lot of these guys have, like you said, been around the block, whereas maybe before it felt like the Brad Bedells and the Eric Keesaw types were very much right there with Harsin wherever he was going to go.
Yeah.
So should be an interesting one on Saturday, is the post Hugh Freeze era. Not quite in earnest. That'll be next year, but these last few games of the regular season, see if Auburn can get to a bowl game. I mean, that's their goal here. If they can win at Vanderbilt, obviously they get an FCS game against Mercer that has a high scoring offense, and they'll see if they can get that one as well. And 3 p.m. Central Time on SEC Network on Saturday. We'll run through some other games just very quickly. Our game of the week and our forecasters is a top 10 game in the Big 12, a really, really good matchup. Number 7 BYU at number 8 Texas Tech. Baron Morton seems like the quarterback. He seems like he's healthy now for Texas Tech. Ever since they lost to Arizona State, they've been humming a little bit. But you wrote about it in the piece this week, Jason. I mean, BYU's just shown a lot of moxie in their games. Maybe it hasn't been the blowout wins. They've kind of squeaked by a couple times, but they've shown a lot of toughness this season. They kind of come out of nowhere.
I really like Bayer Bachmeyer. I mean, the freshman is just a dude, and I think you look at that. I mean, they beat Utah 24-21, won at Arizona, and then won at Iowa State and won fairly easily last week. I mean, that's an impressive win for them. And so I think you start looking at a team like that with a quarterback like that. I just like that toughness factor that he brings to the table, and Kalani Sitake too. I mean, they're just kind of that team.
Yeah, in the SEC, we didn't put Alabama LSU on here because I just don't like to put games where I know for a fact that everyone's going to pick the same team.
Correct.
We all did pick Georgia at Mississippi State, but that could end up being a really good 4-quarter game. Mississippi State has shown that this season.
Yeah, no, I think like almost every game in this league, except for a few, I think if that game in the fourth quarter was Georgia up by 7 and Mississippi State had the ball, maybe Georgia extends it at the end. I could absolutely see that happening.
Yeah, ranked game for number 3 Texas A&M going on the road at Missouri. That's a tricky spot. You know that's going to be a good defense against Marcel Reed. You keep waiting on those guys to slip up, but they haven't yet. And then Florida, Kentucky is interesting to me. Can they ride a little bit of that wave that they had with Mark Stoops last week? Of course, they were not very impressive in that game offensively, but maybe catch some momentum. Huge G5 game on Friday. Tulane at Memphis. Of course, John Summerall is a guy that people talk about candidacy for the Auburn job. Ryan Silverfield also could be coaching somewhere else next year. And then the last one here that we'll talk about is I saw that since 2012. Yeah. Since 2012, Iowa has beaten 7 top 10 teams at Kinnick Stadium. It's just what they do. And this Iowa team actually under Kirk Ferentz for the first time in forever looks like they've maybe figured things out on offense a little bit. This will be an interesting one.
Yeah, and they get Oregon at home. Oregon, I mean, you look and go, Oregon's really their only legit win this season, in my opinion, is at Penn State in overtime. And obviously we saw what that Penn State team is, which has been disastrous this year. Indiana went to Oregon, won pretty handily. Would not be shocked at all to see Iowa win this game. And if they do, I think Oregon's done. I think because of the lack of wins that they have, those 2 losses, I think that would be it for an Oregon team. That, I mean, 3 weeks ago, people were like, "Man, that team's as good as any team in the country. Dante Moore's going to win the Heisman." That's how quickly things can change. It really does.
Yeah, I think so too, especially because the Big Ten championship will probably just be a formality of whoever wants to be ranked higher between Ohio State and Indiana, and then some other. I mean, Iowa's not completely out. You've got some other teams in there that could sneak in. I was looking at it this week with the playoff rankings. The fact that Notre Dame is in there and they're above Miami, who also has 2 losses but beat them, it's kind of ridiculous. But as we expected, they're going to take a spot from somebody. That's just how it is. When Notre Dame's 10-2, they're going to get in this thing, even if they don't have a bunch of quality wins. And so that could push out somebody like a 2-loss Oregon, who's probably would end up behind them. And so be a good Saturday, good weekend of college football. Like I said, started on Friday. Great G5 game on Friday as well to roll us into it. And then we will see you guys in Nashville at First Bank Stadium, 3:00 Central Time on SEC Network, the newly renovated First Bank Stadium. We are excited to get in there because last time was one of the most entertaining press conferences I've ever been in because it was in a construction trailer.
We're in a trailer. I had hard hats and vests hanging right beside us.
It was wonderful. You had the video board hanging by a crane. It was just a big old tarp. And so supposedly very, very nice. And I'm excited to see a Vanderbilt crowd that apparently has been selling out all year. It has been heavy Vandy because for years and years, it's just been the opposing SEC team that takes over. And so seems like they've actually got a really good home environment now. So should be a good one. It's going to be a steep challenge for Auburn as they go for their first road ranked win in 4 years. It'll be the first time since they did it at Arkansas under Brian Harsin. For Jason Caldwell, I am Nathan King. Remember to keep it locked at auburnundercover.com. We are still offering 60% off throughout this coaching search. Got a lot of fun stuff going on. Got 2.0 of our hot board. Auburn basketball tonight, as you listen to this on Thursday, 7:00 Central Time. We will have updates and stories from their game against Merrimack. And as always, Jason, we are thankful and appreciative of AU Club for sponsoring Thursday Night Live. So tell the people about AU Club and everything that they offer.
Absolutely. This is kind of one of those times where, other than maybe early next week when it's going to be pretty cold again, this is about the best time of the year to play golf. And AU Club, it's fantastic. The golf course is in great shape, and you get a chance to get out there and obviously see those facilities where Auburn men's and women's teams play. You have hosted regionals, NCAA regionals, and some qualifier tournaments for the PGA Tour. So great golf facilities, but restaurants is incredible. Clubhouse, locker room facilities there, all kind of things going on. But you got gym access as well, and a pool for the summer for the kids as well. So lots of stuff to check out. So go see AU Club for sure.
great deals for non-Auburn residents.
Yep.
And so be sure to go check them out and tell them that we sent you over to AU Club. So appreciate everybody for joining and listening today. We'll see you guys in Nashville.